You are listening to the Love and Confidence Podcast, episode number 110. Welcome to the Love and Confidence Podcast. If you're a woman who wants to feel more irresistible, have more fun, and create deeper and more authentic connections, this podcast is for you. I am your host, certified life coach Lærke Nielsen, and I help you become the best and most confident version of yourself so you can attract the love life you desire. Let's get started. Hey friend, do you often find yourself being more interested and drawn to the kind of men who are a little bit unavailable, kind of mysterious, and who sometimes are all in on you and give you the full attention, and then the day after you hear nothing? And you never really know when you're gonna hear from him. And the absence of communication is, of course, making you feel anxious, and your mind is spinning with thoughts about what is he thinking and feeling, and if you will ever hear from him again, and when. But then you hear from him, and everything is good. All is forgotten, and you feel just amazing. Until a week later, when he goes silent again. Maybe your rational mind tells you that this is not what you want, but you just can't stop feeling drawn to him every time he comes back. And you can't stop yourself from investing yourself, your time, your brain, and your emotions into him, hoping that he will reciprocate. It's like a drug. In fact, it is almost a drug, and you could be kind of addicted. If this is something you recognize, and especially if this is a pattern that you recognize, then this episode is for you. Because when we react like this, completely against all logic, getting even more hooked when someone withholds their attention from us, then there's a perfectly good reason. And studies show that this phenomenon is valid across different species. It's a reaction pathway that is triggered by a certain behavior. In other words, it's not you, it's your brain. So in this episode, I will tell you what it means to be hooked on this kind of inconsistent reward. I will share with you what the animal data has shown and, of course, give you some tips on how to free yourself, how to detox yourself from this and change your patterns so you no longer fall for the same kind of behavior that keeps you stuck in a cycle of dissatisfaction. So you might have heard of the term love addiction. And I want to make it clear that love addiction is a pattern that includes more than just being drawn to and slightly hooked on someone who's emotionally unavailable. It's a complex of obsessive thinking and behavior, a deep felt need to be validated by a partner, combined with a deep fear of abandonment and low self-esteem, being very dependent on always having a partner, and which altogether makes a person accept unhealthy behavior from a partner that confirms their perception of themselves as not worthy of love. So they usually have a relationship with a person who doesn't treat them well, and they go very far to avoid abandonment. Love addiction has actually not much to do with love. It is much more a question of addiction and low self-esteem. What I'm going to talk about today is not love addiction as such, but more the milder degree. The tendency that I think we all have experienced one or more times where you just get hooked on trying to win over a guy who inconsistently offers you the attention and emotional investment that you want from him. It's the kind of situation where you've met someone who seems very interesting and exciting to you. Someone that you really want to move forward with and get to know more and maybe build a relationship with. They tick all the boxes and they're handsome, charming, smart, and have a great sense of humor. And sometimes it's clearly reciprocated. He shows you that he feels the same for you, but then other times not. It's very confusing, but you struggle to say if it's just you. Am I just overreacting here? Is it normal the way he's behaving? And am I asking too much? Is it my anxious attachment style? Or if it's actually him, is he avoidant or emotionally unavailable? Or is he playing me? And so you check your phone for messages all the time and you obsess about what he's thinking and feeling and you try to strategize. How can I make him respond to me? How can I make him like me more and want me more? And if he just didn't respond and always was a bit laid back and not very engaged, you would have most likely lost the interest after a while. You would have been sad and disappointed, but you would have realized that it's leading nowhere. But this is not the case because he is giving you the feedback you want, except it happens only once in a while and way less than what you want. But when it happens, you are all in again, back in the loop and feeling really amazing. When we get hooked on someone who is hard to get and inconsistent, several things are at play. It's normal for the brain to perceive things that are difficult to achieve, rewards that are difficult to earn, so to speak, as more valuable. If he's that hard to get, he must be someone special, right? So that's one thing that factors in automatically. And you want to pay attention to that. Hard to get and holding back on emotional connection is not more valuable. In fact, it's the opposite. When it comes to love, scarcity is not a sign of value. Another thing that could come at play here is your ego. I mean, we all have that, and if he's shown you some interest and then holds back on it, your ego might tell you that you want to win him over. You want to take on that challenge and get the guy, independently of what you think of him and whether you believe he's a good match for you and you are compatible and so on. Now it has become a project, and you are going to show him that you are amazing, and he's, of course, going to be crazy about you. And then again, another factor is the brain biology that comes into play when we are exposed to inconsistent reward. Because something interesting happens here, and this has been studied in several species, and the first time by a behavioral psychologist and scientist, B.F. Skinner, who in the 1930s and 40s conducted studies on pigeons as part of a broader research into conditioning. So I'm not going to describe every element of his experiments here because it's not all directly relevant to this context. But the interesting part was a study in which he conditioned pigeons to press a lever to get food. So what he did was first to train the animals to learn that every time they pressed the lever, they would get food. And once they had learned this mechanism, he changed the rules. Some pigeons only got food every once in a while, after a completely unpredictable pattern, and some pigeons got food every 5 times they pressed the lever. Now try to guess how the groups responded. It's logic to expect that the pigeons that got food after pressing 5 times, they just pressed it 5 times in a row and then waited for the food. And this is also what happened. But what about those who got food once in a while and where it was completely unpredictable and no pattern or system at all? Maybe you would expect that they stopped pressing the lever as the motivation just ran out, since they often didn't get the expected reward. But actually, the opposite happened. The pigeons that only got food inconsistently, they went completely crazy in pressing the lever. They continued pressing it obsessively. The unpredictability would keep the animals trying to get the reward as they never knew when it would come. And this uncertainty actually kept them going to exhaustion. They couldn't stop themselves from pressing the lever. And another important result of this same study was that this kind of behavior was very resistant to extinction, which means it was difficult to unlearn. It was difficult to let go of the habit of pressing the lever obsessively. Somehow, the pigeons got really hooked on the expectation of a possible reward, more than if the reward was certain. So the pattern of obsessively trying, even if they knew chances were small, that pattern was very difficult to change once they had adopted it. And I'm just going to repeat that because it is really important when you think of it in a wider perspective. Uncertainty and unpredictability of a reward gets the brain hooked to a degree that would cause the animals to exhaust themselves to get the reward. and this behavior was very difficult to let go of. So I don't know if you recognize anything here. I know I felt like a pigeon a few times in my life. Now you might say, okay, this was a study on pigeons, and even if it has been repeated in different animal species such as rats, still, pigeons and rats, they don't have the ability to reflect and coach themselves and so on like humans do, or at least not as far as we know. So how do we know that these results can be applied to humans as well? Well, we know that the basic ways of learning and conditioning, they function the same way across many species. And also many of the principles that Skinner developed through his research and that were initially tested on animals, they have been tested and confirmed in studies involving humans as well. For instance, in studies investigating gambling behavior. How humans respond when put in front of a slot machine that only rarely gives a reward, but when it comes, it's a huge reward. And also, there's been conducted a ton of computer-based tests that confirm that the pattern is the same in humans. The hope of potentially getting a reward, but never really knowing for sure, that is very powerful for creating a kind of dependency that keeps us hooked in what is sometimes a very unhealthy pattern. And that is what happens when you keep finding yourself in a relationship dynamic with someone who only inconsistently offers you the response that you want. You can say you've met someone who's a bit of a player, but you can also ask yourself, who is the real gambler here? If you invest your time, your energy, and your emotions hoping for a reward that you know only comes on a very inconsistent basis, a return of investment that is far from guaranteed, then you can say that you are kind of putting in the effort to an uncertain game, hoping to win one day, although you experience that it's very unreliable. And because the reward, which is his attention and expressions of emotions, only comes once in a while, you get addicted because that's how our brain functions. So it could seem like a cruel trick from nature's side. The fact that we get really strongly hooked when the reward is inconsistent. It would serve us better to go for the rewards that are certain, right? How come nature made it that way? In the context of natural selection and survival of the fittest, how can it be an advantage to get obsessive about inconsistent rewards and uncertainty, you might ask? Actually, being persistent when the result is uncertain is an adaptive strategy that has helped humans survive in uncertain environments. So, back in the days when we were all cave people, rewards like food, water, or mating opportunities, they were rarely guaranteed or consistently available. Inconsistent reward would encourage an individual to be persistent in trying to get the resources, despite of sometimes having failures. And this would in the end increase the chances of eventual success. Someone that continues hunting for food, despite the fact that failure is more frequent than success, they are more likely to find something to eat over time than the one who gives up after initial failures. Someone who is determined to go for the reward, in spite of it being inconsistent, is also more willing to take a calculated risk, to explore new strategies of getting the reward, and go into new territories to find food, for instance. But also in the cave people's social life, where the attention and support are the rewards, and they could also be unpredictable, a little bit of persistence in forming relationships or alliances could give them long-term advantages like protection, cooperation, and resource sharing. So having a natural persistence to seek rewards that are inconsistent and uncertain, that has given us a survival advantage back in the days. So the persistence and not just giving up like that is in itself a power to acknowledge. And maybe that helps a little bit if you feel you've been trapped in this pattern to understand that this is actually coming from your survival instinct. But the thing is, when it becomes maladaptive, so the pigeon who exhausts itself on pressing the lever and not getting any food, or the person who exhausts herself from obsessive thinking leading to anxiety around a man who is maybe not interested in her. That is when it doesn't represent any survival advantages. Being an entrepreneur, I'll say that it is absolutely necessary to try again and again, even when the results are uncertain. That is one of the biggest challenges in this line of profession, to believe in something that there is no certainty for, a result that you can never predict. And we say that the only difference between those who succeed and those who don't is that those who succeed, they just keep going, they never give up. But when it comes to trying again and again to get the result we want, no matter what the result is, if it's building a business or if it's finding love, this should always be combined with your rational thinking and evaluation. When is it no longer serving you to try again and again? When have you tried enough? When do you need to try a different strategy? And in dating, meet other people. When do you stop yourself from doing what isn't working and turn your attention to someone else? Those are the questions you need to ask yourself. And luckily, we are not pigeons or rats, and we do have as humans the cognitive capacity to reflect on our own behavior, to recognize when we're stuck in a pattern and get ourselves out of it. And we can coach ourselves or we can hire a coach to help us. So how do you break this pattern? I'm going to give you 3 steps. The first one is awareness. It's always important to realize what is going on before you can change anything. You notice that you are in a dynamic that isn't serving you. If you are pendulating in between deep anxiety on the one side and joy and excitement on the other side, something is off, regardless of what and why and whose fault it is. We're not looking to place a responsibility on someone or blame someone. We're looking to see what serves you. So here are some questions you want to ask yourself. In this dynamic, are you acting in alignment with your values, with your worth? And if not, in what ways are you not being who you want to be in a relationship? Do you want a man whose attention you have to fight for? What if you could meet someone who gave it to you freely and with no hard work required from your side? Even if you might feel it's doable to be in this now, is this how you want things to be on a longer term? What if it never changes? Will you be happy then? You never want to date someone on the basis of potential, the expectations that things will change radically. You want to date on the present circumstances. What is the behavior you've seen over the past 2 to 3 months? And if you only known him for 2 weeks, it's still too early to say anything. And then you want to make a decision. And if you decide to end the relationship, then the best way to decondition yourself is actually to also have no contact with him for something like 3 to 6 months. If you here decide not to end it, then you want to evaluate and ask yourself the same questions in a month from now. So that was step number 1, gaining awareness, and from here, making a decision about ending the connection or not. Step number 2 is learn to meet your own needs. And I can't tell you how important this is. You have to be the expert in recognizing what you need and know how to give that to yourself, not depend on a man to bring it to you. And this not only includes your emotional needs such as self-compassion and self-validation, having your own back, supporting yourself, having constructive inner self-talk, and so on. I actually also mean this on a wider holistic perspective. Being able to create the life that you want, or being on the way to create it. Knowing that this is your responsibility and it's in your power to create that life. What does a good life mean to you? What needs to be in it and that is outside of a relationship? And what are the things that you are in control of? Make sure you cultivate a social circle, friends that you can have fun with, be vulnerable with, have deep conversations with, and feel connected to. Make sure you have a passion and a purpose in life. What makes you get out of bed in the morning? What brings you that feeling of making a difference in the world? And make sure you have joy and fun and lightness in your life, as well as challenges and growth. I know this is a big one. Step number 2, it's your whole life. So you need to take a look at it and revise it and see if you need an upgrade. Because this will make you so much more resilient and resistant to this kind of inconsistent behavior. We can say it like this: if you are able to cook really healthy, tasty, and delicious dishes in your own life, you are less prone to be dependent or hooked on someone who only offers you a bit of dry crumbs. It's just not tempting anymore. Your future relationship is going to be so much better and more aligned with you if you are already in a happy place with your life. If you are already a woman who knows how to live your best life. And if you have the unstoppable confidence of knowing that you created all this, you designed your life. It wasn't a man who gave you happiness and that you met by random chance. You created that. And then you can meet someone who can add to your life and make it even better. And that leads me to step number 3, redefine relationships. You want to redefine what is a healthy relationship to you. What does that look like? And how is it different than what you just had? How will you recognize a good partner? What are the signs to look for? What is the new attractive if it's not handsome and hard to get? Could it be emotionally mature or someone who keeps showing up? Consistency, could that in itself be the new sexy for you? Self-aware, could that be the new attractive? In the same go, you want to try to identify the kind of behavior in a partner that would make you hooked in the past. Your triggers, things you used to feel drawn to, and that you used to see as very interesting and valuable, but that you now will rephrase as signs that he isn't ready or he isn't a good match for you. Know what to look for and what to avoid. And then when you start dating again, take it slow. Don't rush into a new relationship. Remember to stay grounded and enjoy your current life. Keep your eyes open to see what is really happening and not just what you want to happen. And notice how things are developing over time. The reliability and consistency can be easy to have in a period of 2 weeks, but it's much more difficult to sustain that for 3 months. So remember to give a new relationship time before you decide if this is something you want to commit to. So those were the 3 steps. Gain awareness, and that will automatically lead you to make a decision about the connection. Learn to meet your own needs, which could mean that you up-level your life. And finally, redefine what is a healthy relationship to you. What is the new attractive to you? Now, before we end, I also want to say a few words about the emotionally unavailable partner, the one who is inconsistent, who is all in one day and then goes silent the next. And by the way, that can be a woman too, it's not only male partners. I want to add a comment because I think it has become way too easy to demonize or villainize this person, and it's not serving anyone to do that. It's important to understand that this person very often has their own issues. They struggle with their own set of fears and traumas, even if it doesn't look like that. You don't have to hate someone to let them go. You don't have to villainize someone to see that you are not okay with the connection you have with them. You can just recognize that it's not what you want, and then move forward and wish them the best. Rise above and be a more authentic and consistent person yourself. Communicate clearly and honestly, and then let them be who they are, so that you get to be with someone else. So this is what I had for you today, and I hope you found it helpful. I want to say that this tendency or pattern to become hooked on inconsistency, the hot and cold partner, is very common, and I see this all the time. And it's something I can help you break free of, so you can start meeting a whole different kind of person who is more consistent and a much better partner potential for you. If you want to know more, you can book a call on the link in the show notes, and the call is free but I require that you invest a minimum of your time to answer a few questions that basically just show me that you've done some reflections about why you want to talk to me and what you're struggling with. So hop on the link and book a call, and let's do something about it. Thank you for listening, and don't forget, no matter if you're single or not, you are loved, you are worthy, and you are important in this world. Have an amazing week. If you like what you're hearing on this podcast and you want to get support from a coach on your love journey, I invite you to book a free consult call with me. You will find the link in the show notes. And also, don't forget to subscribe, and I would love it if you would rate and review this podcast, and then you'll also help other women find it.